I got this box from Hobby Lobby. It was $2.50, but I'm pretty sure I got it while it was on sale. It's a 5x5x5 cube box. I'm just going to be using the bottom, not the lid. I'll do something with the lid in another video. But I'm going to make a tissue box cover for my craft room. This box goes over the tissue box perfectly, except it's just a little bit short, and I'm going to address that later. I've got these two pieces of cardboard here, these two rectangles. There's the size of each of them. I'm going to use some masking tape to attach them while I'm gluing them into a certain angle for the roof. Once that glue's set up, I needed to trace out the wall part that's going to go right underneath that roof there. Did two of those, of course, and then cut those out. Then I just hot glued those underneath the roof, and I should have consulted the box. I got lucky that this fit perfectly on the top of the box there. I could have really messed up there and had to cut those away or redid the roof because I didn't check to make sure that it was lining up with the wall of the house, but thank goodness it worked out. I'm just using this wooden block to trace around for the chimney. Now it was a little bit tall, so I cut a little, I cut that down just a little bit shorter, and then I glued those four little rectangles together. Then I just took and traced around that chimney for the hole for the chimney to go down inside the roof. I hot glued that to the roof underneath. And then I needed to cut a hole there in the bottom of the box for the tissues to go through and then to go up through the chimney. And I was just showing you there, this is a pretty thick and sturdy box. And so it has a little bit of weight to it as well, which works out nicely for a tissue box cover. You want it to be a little bit weighted. That way when you go to pull the tissues out, it won't lift the entire thing, if that makes sense. I used Titebond Quick and Thick glue to glue the roof onto the house. And then I painted the walls and the chimney with Cashew chalk paint by Waverly. I went with some lightweight spackling from Walmart and just filled in any holes, where the cardboard is corrugated, just any little openings where the roof pieces meet, just to make it look a little bit nicer. I took some gray and brown paint and mixed that up together. I didn't even mix it that well because this part, that didn't matter. I'm going to do a base coat of this on the roof there because you're going to be able to see in between the shingles just a little bit, and so I didn't want that to be that cardboard color. I wanted it to be the same color as the shingles. Now I looked online and was going to buy some dollhouse roofing material, some dollhouse shingles. You can buy them in sheets, but they were just too pricey. I really wanted this to be a very budget friendly. I always want my projects to be very budget friendly. And so I was looking around my craft room and I thought, sandpaper. Sandpaper has the same texture as roof shingles. It's very close. So I just pounced on that mix of gray and brown paint, and I didn't do, perfectly full coverage. I wanted it to be sort of like a variation in the color, and that turned out looking so good. Like I was so happy with how the shingles turned out. I just cut the sandpaper down into little rectangles, and I just used my paper cutter, the lines on my paper cutter, to make all the shingles the same size. I originally was going to cover the top of the roof line, the peak of the roof line there, with a row of shingles, but it just so happened that the shingles met up so perfectly that I didn't really need it. It looked fine, but if you recreated this and they don't meet up, well, you could do, a row on the top to cover where they meet. Now, I bought these stencils from Amazon. I will put them in my Amazon shop, but I have in a previous video, I created a stencil out of some plastic, and there's the thumbnail. I showed that on the screen there, and so you could make your own stencil, and I showed how to in that old Christmas video, if you don't want to buy these brick stencils. But these will be in my Amazon shop if you're interested. Picked the more rustic looking brick, of course. Now, to address how this box was a little too short to completely cover the tissue box, I'm just going to take some of these larger craft sticks here I got from Walmart, and I'm just going to put the box on the tissue box, and then this worked out well. I just glued the craft sticks to the bottom to trim out the bottom of the little house. I think it looked just fine. And then on the corners there, I went back with spackling where I didn't miter the corners, and so they didn't meet up perfectly. Now, originally, this was just going to be a fun little project. It wasn't supposed to take me this long to make it, but you know how it goes sometimes when you're crafting. I just got in there, I got a little too into it. I was going to print some windows for the little house and just paste them on the house, but the shingles turned out so well that I was like, I cannot just put printed windows on here. I'm gonna have to make windows, so that's what I did, just using some cardstock. But I will, if you're interested, put those windows that I was going to print. If you wanted to recreate this and didn't want to do the tedious work of making these little windows, I think it would look just fine, and it would have looked just fine, but I just got way too into it, like I said. But I will put those in the description box if you'd like to print those or to use on some other project, because I didn't even create them, ChatGPT did. So I'll throw those down in the description box if you're interested in those. But I just took some wooden coffee stir sticks and cut them down with scissors, and also used my miter shears as well. And I just made some little windows on top of this brown cardstock here. For the door, I just took, I believe it's the largest size of craft stick you can buy. I bought these from Walmart. I just had a piece of one here, and I just cut that down for the door. I like to use my miter shears a lot of times to score the craft sticks and then finish off the cut with scissors. I feel like that helps the craft sticks not to crack. I was definitely just winging this, and at first I glued that door on the house, and I shouldn't have glued it down yet because I still needed to put my spackling bricks on there with the stencil. And so I did end up popping that door off of there before the glue set up, and I took some more cardstock and just cut out identical little rectangles the same size as the windows so that the spackling bricks wouldn't be underneath the windows, so that the windows will sit flush up against the little house and not be raised. And so that will make sense here in just a moment. But I taped down the stencil and then took that lightweight spackling. I haven't seen lightweight spackling at Dollar Tree in a while, and I just used the last of my Dollar Tree spackling. I hope they bring it back, because this spackling is $2 to $3, and that's compared to the $1.25 that we were paying. But I just took this little scraping tool here and just, you saw, it's easier to show than to explain, but just push that spackling down in that stencil, and then when I raised it up, there were the little raised bricks. You could, of course, so that, you know, you don't have to do the spackling, you could just do your paint whatever brick, you know, color you wanted to use, and not have the bricks raised off of the house. And that would definitely be skipping a step and make this, you know, easier and quicker. And I wasn't going for perfection. I wanted the bricks to be rustic looking, and it looked like the bricks had been patched and, you know, mortar added on the corners and just, you know, things like that. Just tried to make it look old. I took the True Burgundy by Folk Art, and I just pounced using this little sponge pounce brush from the Dollar Tree. Just pounced on that paint so that it wouldn't go in between the bricks, and it did a little bit, but not much. It just added to the rustic look. I glued on the windows with Tite Bond, and then I added some trim to the top of the chimney. I thought about adding some more little trim pieces with more coffee stir sticks on the corners, but I ended up just, you know, it looks fine. I could just have kept going and got more and more detailed with it, but it was just a tissue box cover. But once I got it all together, I wasn't going to do steps, but I just felt like it really needed the steps. So I just took a tumbling tower block and a half, and I glued those on the front for steps. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you remember that I made a gingerbread house, and on one of my Christmas videos, a tissue box cover, and I like how, you know, with the houses, it looks like smoke coming out of the chimney, the tissues do. And so I wanted to sort of recreate that, but have something I could leave out year round, and I will probably keep this in my craft room. This is just a quick reminder that if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. That way you don't miss any future videos. And hit that hype button as well if you really liked these crafts. For this one, I have this sort of wood blank sign here from the Dollar Tree. I got it for $1.25. I'm going to punch a hole. I want to hang this long ways instead of up and down. And so I'm going to punch a hole to match this other hole on the other side. And then that hole in the bottom corner I'm going to fill with lightweight spackling. I do a decent coat of Mod Podge on the front of this piece and let that dry. I've got this napkin here that we used for our Ladies' Day at church. And I took one because they were so pretty and there were extra. And so I took one to craft with. And so I've been saving this for a little while to use on something. But if you, and I can put these napkins in my Amazon shop, but if you don't want to buy a whole pack of napkins, just to have one to craft with, I also will have this as a printable in the description box. It's a couple of artwork options that I have sized to this particular board from the Dollar Tree. Took the ply off the back of the napkin. It was just 2 ply, and then I used my iron and reactivated that Mod Podge with this mini iron here, using some parchment paper to protect the napkin and my iron as well. And then I just sanded off that excess napkin. And I did go over the top of the whole thing with super matte Mod Podge. I've got this hanging wire hook hanger thing from the Dollar Tree. Got out of the tools section. It was $1.25. And I will be mounting that to the back of this piece. First, I gave it a base coat of truffle chalk paint. And then I decided to add these wood beads to each of these hooks, it just changed the look of it, and I felt like made the hooks look nicer. Painted those with truffle as well, and then I went over all the hooks with European Gold Rub and Buff. Now to attach these hooks to the back of this sign here, I'm going to mark out where the holes are on the hooks, and then I'm going to punch those in the wood. I'm going to use E6000, but I didn't want to rely solely on the E6000 to hold these on here, although it is very good glue. It probably would have been fine with what I'll be hanging on this piece, but I wanted some extra hold, and so that's what those holes are for. I took 2 large zip ties, and when you attach 2 zip ties together, you can have sort of a double-ended securing thing. I don't know how to explain that, but because the ends of the zip ties are larger than the holes that I punched in the wood, that's gonna hold that on both sides of the piece there. I just trimmed away the excess plastic of the zip ties. I have these 2 molded roses here. I took a silicone mold and put hot glue in there to make these 2 hot glue roses. And then I just melted the back of that. I melted, a good bit. I didn't, go all the way through the rose, of course, because that would have affected how it looks. But I melted a good bit of that hot glue on the back of each rose and put that down over that zip tie. First, I was going to go over it with the European Gold Rub and Buff, the roses, but I decided I liked how they were sort of, they didn't stand out. I kind of liked how they didn't stand out, and you don't notice them so much because they are just covers for those zip ties. This one's pretty easy and quick. I just have this $1.25 frame from the Dollar Tree. And I have this set of pillowcases from Walmart. There's the screenshot of them. And I thought that, $14 for a couple of pillowcases was a little bit steep, but I liked the fabric so much that I just had to have them, and I'll be able to use this fabric on quite a few projects. The mat inside of this frame was too thin for what I was going to be doing, and so I made a new one just by tracing that out on some thicker cardboard and making a new one. And now I'm just going to wrap the mat and the frame separately with this fabric. I'm just going to wrap it sort of like you would wrap a present, which is not great for me because I'm not very good at wrapping presents. This certainly didn't turn out perfect. It does have some flaws, but I do still really like how it turned out, and it's a great way to take a cheap frame and turn it into something that you like much better. This is also a great project to use up small pieces of fabric that you might have that you're hanging onto. You bought, a yard of fabric and you have some left. You really like the fabric, but you don't know what kind of projects to use it on. So this is one of those scrap fabric projects that you can use your scraps on. I thought I would leave my mistake in there. I started to glue the wrong side of the fabric. I needed to flip that fabric around, but I saved it and it was all good. This was the first one of these I'd ever made, and so it's definitely not perfect. There are a few flaws to it, It's one of those projects where you would definitely get better at it the more you did it. And so this was one of those times where I wish I would have made a second one. And that way I would have had the practice from the first one and then showed y'all the second one. But this is the very first one I'd ever done. And I'll definitely be doing this more because I just love, I love how this frame turned out versus what it looked like before. You could put the glass back in, but I didn't want to. I didn't want that shine to it, and I might later. I kept the glass. I might put it back in later, but for now I'm just going to leave that out. I have this piece of artwork here. It's just a 4x6 that I had printed at Walgreens, and the artist's name is Marcus Stone. There's, some information about him. He illustrated some Charles Dickens books and some Anthony Trollope books. I've read quite a few of Anthony Trollope's books, and a few of Charles Dickens books as well, but I thought that was very interesting. This is just a painting of a mother and her child, and he has lots of art. If you just search his name, do an image search, his other artwork is very nice as well. You could certainly glue all this together, but just for the sake of time, I just used some masking tape to secure the back onto the frame there. And that's it for this one. You'll have to tell me what you think about these down in the comments, and let me know if you have a favorite of today. I really like all of these projects. I'm looking forward to using them in my home and making some more of those fabric covered frames. I also want to make another tissue box cover and make it be a replica of my house. I think that would be really neat to do, and I think I will do that on another video. But that's it for this one today. I thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.